Utah's homeless industrial complex is in high gear to build, baby, build our way out of homelessness by providing homes to the homeless. Of course, that's the most compassionate solution. That is the most thoughtful solution. However, there are hidden realities that they do not want you to know. Who are they? I'm going to reveal who they are a little bit later in the episode, but I've got three broader questions that I want to address. The first question, why do they want to keep these realities hidden? Short answer, they want to keep making money on the homeless. Who is ensuring that you and I and all taxpayers are left out in the dark? I'm going to get into that. Why do they continue to push the narrative that money and more buildings can solve homelessness? I'm going to get into that as well. So Utah Stories has been covering this issue in depth for over 6 years now. And every so often I want to just give an update and an overview of what we are doing, what we have done. And I want you to know the truth. I want to share the truth because the truth is out there. And there's just no doubt this problem could actually be solved. If we didn't continue on the broken path that we are, that is not solving the problem, but only exacerbating the problem, it could absolutely be solved. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you what we've uncovered, and we're going to go over why it's become a national problem and why especially cities in the West are facing bigger and bigger costs associated with solving homelessness, which is not leading to the solution at all. If you're not familiar with us, this is Utah Stories Magazine. This is our current issue. It's got an alien getting his brain egg carved out with a spoon. I actually didn't think this would be a great idea, but people love it. So it's got our brunch guide in the middle, all these incredible places to go eat brunch around Utah. So I want you to know we are a completely independent journalism company. And I want to thank the wonderful people like you who support us by subscribing to the magazine, by going to the places and patronizing the advertisers in the magazine. But this is a free magazine, and you can also sometimes find this one for free. But for those of you who actually do pay us, I want to tell you your dollar gets stretched so far to getting these investigations completed and getting the answers that we want that improve the quality of life here in Utah. So those of you who are paying, we have a couple, maybe 100 or so. Thank you so much for your support. We are trying to get a few more supporters because we want to do way more investigative journalism. And we have some big goals we want to achieve. We want to go out and find the voices of local Utah and report on those voices back to you. That's how we uncover the truth. That's how we find the truth. It's not by researching online dark web stuff. We actually just go out and talk to people. That's what we find is lacking in a lot of journalistic outlets and pundits today, is just going out and talking to people. And with your support, we're able to talk to more people. So I wanted to go out 6 years ago and find out how and why the homeless problem was only getting worse despite the budget for homeless services increasing anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20% per year since about 2016. The more money we pour into the services, the more homeless people we get. Why is it that the supply of homeless people seems never ending? Short answer, we are rewarding people to be homeless. We are rewarding people to be on drugs by giving them a free house, giving them free apartments, not a free house, but free apartments under permanent supportive housing. And we're rewarding that behavior. If you reward that behavior, you're going to get more people who are going to be sick and tired of paying their high rent, working a tough job, barely making ends meet, who decide they want to be homeless. That's a short answer to why we are getting more homeless. But I want to go into it. I want to get you connected to how I connected those dots. So the first clip I want to play for you here was from 3.5 years ago. This is a small business owner from downtown Salt Lake City who explains why she left. Her name is Teresa Bowman. I just want to play that for you now.
One time we went on Fox News, and then it went to Fox National News. And they contacted me after watching it, and they said, you know, we talked about chairs being thrown off the top of the building and hitting our awning, and we talked about men masturbating in front of our girls, and human feces at our front door, and having to come and shovel it and pile it and clean it every day. And the cops coming, and the homeless guy just pushed the cop. I recorded it. And
So can I pause you? You
Yes.
said men masturbating in front of your windows.
yeah,
So when a guy just shows up and starts doing that,
yeah.
isn't that totally public indecency? Shouldn't the police be there right away and taking that guy out?
You would think so, yeah.
But
So
that's not happening.
no, the first time they came. The second and third time they never even came. And that's when I called Miss Ida Lopez from this that worked for the mayor's office. And I said, you know, you asked me not to go on national news, but I need some help. I can't keep girls working here. They don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. Nobody feels safe. How am I supposed to have a cute 18, 19-year-old girl cutting hair here if this is going on? And she said, well, you need to hire your own security person. Or she told me I should open up a coffee shop inside of my business that would deter the homeless from coming around by having more people around all the time. And I said, why would I open another business inside of a failing business? I said, it takes, and hair and food don't go together anyways. So I tried, you know, to do a coffee shop once upon a time. And those were her solutions.
Well, and I gotta say, it's almost like these government leaders, they think in this way, this manner, that there's almost unlimited money at your disposal to solve all these problems.
Exactly.
Because that's how they think as bureaucrat. Okay, and so that was 3 years ago, and I was like, how in the world is this happening in downtown Salt Lake City, where we're allowing more and more people to walk the streets who are homeless? And if you saw Main Street downtown then, it was actually much worse, to give the city credit, than it is right now. But there were people using spice out on the street, and heroin getting shot up, and then there was a lot of people who were just wreaking havoc on the businesses. And Teresa Bowman, their Mid-City Salon, moved to Trolley Square, and she found a much better home in Trolley Square. I think her unit is still vacant. I don't think that anybody has picked up that spot, just like Weller Books moved out of their spot. It was changed over to Eborn Books. They moved out about 3 years ago. That is still vacant. Their Southam Gallery, which moved out of downtown's Main Street not too long after this lady, Teresa, did, that space is still vacant. They are not serving the interests of small business owners. And for years, we've just been covering the news in Utah Stories from the point of view of small business owners. And finally, they've at least gotten most of the homeless people off of Main Street by hiring more police officers. But it was ridiculous that they were allowing this to happen. And so, but the big question is, when this happened in 2023, when they beefed up homeless services, this was like not too long after they had just opened a couple of new homeless shelters, and they had hired Downtown Ambassador. The Downtown Ambassador program, I believe, started in 2021. All these people just walking around Main Street trying to help homeless people. But I want to show you how this all got started. I want to show you a clip all the way back from 2008 of a much younger Gavin Newsom. This shows you kind of the mindset of most city leaders. He was mayor, actually, of San Francisco at the time. I want to play this for you.
End chronic homeless in San Francisco. We believe fundamentally that food solves hunger, that shelters solve sleep, and that housing solves homelessness. And if we're going to solve the problem of those that are out on the streets that we define as homeless, we better solve the housing problem if we're going to have an impact. And that's why we established this framework, what we call a 10-year plan to end chronic homeless in San Francisco. Fundamentally.
Okay, that was 2008. If you do the math, his 10-year plan expired in 2018. Did they solve homelessness by building more and more and more homes? Obviously, they did not. It got worse and worse and worse. So I want to show you just another piece from that longer video. It was a town hall meeting, Gavin Newsom solving homelessness back in 2018.
200% increase in just 4 years of the number of homeless that are housed. 1,736 now in the first quarter of 08-09, you're going to see folks, 5,186 folks that are housed, well on our way to reaching our 10-year goal to end chronic homelessness.
Okay, let's examine his math for a second there. It's a lot of words describing big percentages. He said they had a 197% increase in homelessness, but then they solved it by a 200% increase in housing. He's like, we're well on our way to solving homelessness, as if the number of homeless people is just going to remain this like fixed number that you can just solve. There was no inkling that the number of homeless people would be increasing over time. Now, granted, I'm not blaming the producing of permanent supportive housing units as directly causing homelessness. Obviously, the opioid epidemic we've pointed at many times had definitely something to do with it. All these people addicted to opioids and now then getting on to street heroin and black tar heroin. And I talked to a guy who wrote an incredible book about that called Dreamland, Samuel Quinones, and he talks about how the excessive supply of black tar heroin back in the early 2000s really exacerbated the homeless problem and the drug epidemic all across the nation. But the point is, Gavin Newsom really believed he had stumbled onto something. Provide homes to the homeless and we'll solve the problem. And here in Salt Lake City, we absolutely adopted that policy as well. And it became known as the housing first approach to solving homelessness. And so now let's look at Gavin Newsom. This was just 4 years ago. What he was saying now would be the new solution. So jumping from 2008 to, I believe, 2021, this is Gavin Newsom speaking in a park in San Diego saying what they really needed this time to solve homelessness.
4 years ago, the state was nowhere to be found on these issues. And this is a point of not only optimism, but for consideration for those that are sick and tired of hearing from people like me at events like this, but to not see things substantively approved. I recognize that frustration. I see it every single day. These encampments in California are unacceptable. The dirty streets in this state are unacceptable. The graffiti in the state is unacceptable. We have to do more and we have to do better. But I want folks to know this. We're not continuing to do what we've done. We're doing things we've never done in the state's history. We are targeting interventions, targeting partnerships, and holding all of us to a higher level of accountability. Let me be specific. Last year, we did something novel in this state, recognizing what's happened, particularly with COVID, and this policy where people started to pull back as it relates to outreach on the streets. Tents.
Okay, if you watch that whole clip, the guys that speak before Gavin Newsom talk about how they have this massive cleanup effort. There's more money going into cleaning up the parks, cleaning up the homeless trash debris, getting more homeless off the streets. But the main thing Gavin Newsom was asking for in that, which this Forbes headline shows, is he promotes a $14 billion plan to combat homelessness. So it's not, again, like we need $1 billion to solve homelessness, like he'd said 8 or 9 years before that clip. He now needs $14 billion for California to solve homelessness. And there's another big story there where Newsom was spearheading the effort to raise awareness for permanent supportive housing instead of shelters. Like, let's replace shelters with permanent supportive housing. And he was getting broad support for that starting as mayor in San Francisco, which really helped him get elected to be governor. And that plan was very much on board with our homeless czar at the time, appointed by the LDS Church, Lloyd Pendleton, and Jackie Biskupski, our mayor at the time, was very much on board with that idea. And I'm going to show you now some folks about who I talked to who were on the streets at that time. And sorry, pause 1 second. Oh, sorry, I lost my place a little bit, so I'll cut that out. Okay, yeah, so at the time you could see Gavin Newsom was in San Diego, and he was saying that state entities needed to pull their weight and start stepping up for the huge problems that the urban centers were facing with homelessness. And as a result, California started pumping in more and more money, just as the state of Utah, if you remember back in about 2017, we also, the state leaders, the state legislature started agreeing to pump far more money into homeless services that was primarily impacting Salt Lake City. So that's very familiar. And $14 billion is what he asked for. I think our state leaders at the time of Operation Rio Grande were asking for $68 million in a 3-year program. We have a tiny fraction of the population of California. Just by comparison, California's 27 million people, and in Utah we're at about 3.5 million people. But still, I mean, the idea is more money will solve homelessness. And so I've reached this conclusion, and I've gotten attacked for this conclusion. And my conclusion is homelessness is not primarily caused by too few homes. And it's interesting. I just thought I would ask AI. I'm obviously on ChatGPT just like everybody else is, but I asked Google's AI, what is the primary cause of homelessness and why it has surged in the United States? I just wanted to see what Google AI tells me. And so you could show my screen. These are the results I got. Stagnant incomes and rising rents. Between 2001 and 2023, inflation-adjusted median rents rose 23%, while median incomes grew only 5%. Certainly that is a factor. I'm not going to argue that. Shortage of affordable housing. The nation has a critical deficit of low-cost housing. As 2022, there was only 37 affordable and rental homes for every 100 extremely low-income households. That shortage pushes vulnerable people into homes. I'm not going to argue that. Widespread crisis in coastal cities due to suburban and rural areas. I don't know what that's, but I think, the pandemic and COVID definitely caused probably more evictions, more moratoriums on rental assistance. Families severely impacted. The benefits for devastated families with children created a sharp rise in family homelessness, immigration. Estimates are 11 million illegal immigrants came in during Biden's administration. Obviously, that's going to have an impact when you add 11 million people to your population. Strain on shelter systems. There's all the shelters in Utah are full right now. We know that. Policies exacerbate challenges, racial and ethnic disparities, other marginalized groups. It's funny, you don't see here that you really have to go down far to see that drug addiction and mental health have caused homelessness. So it comes down to health and addiction issues, employment obstacles, life events. But here's the one I want to highlight: trauma and family conflict. Every single person on the streets I've ever interviewed, and I've interviewed dozens, have broken families. They are not in contact. They got in a fight with their parents, or their parents have died, or they are alone. They're isolated. That is the most common problem. Domestic violence is also huge. Very common to go out on the streets, interview people, and they come from domestic violence situations. And intergenerational homelessness. I find that many young people on the streets who have been using drugs for years started using when they were 11 or 12 years old because their parents were using. We've had on this podcast several women who were homeless for years, including women who were at the Other Side Academy. Jackie Tress started using when she was a young lady, 11 or 12, because her mother was using. And we had on, I hope I get her name right. I believe her name's Elizabeth. And she was on the streets with her mother at a very young age using drugs. And so it's just a recurring pattern. And so I think that what we have to examine is that homelessness is by and large a symptom of a greater problem. And if we don't address the greater problem, of course, homelessness is going to increase. And what I think is the solution is what I'm going to get to next. But what I also find talking to homeless people, and it's very, very common, and David DeRocher, who's been on this program, who's the CEO of the Other Side Academy, says many homeless people have not developed their emotional intelligence. So when you're faced with a problem, whether it be work or family life or a relationship, they haven't developed the ability to react to that problem in a proper manner. Instead, they like fly off the handle, throw things, get really enraged. Perhaps they learned that from a family member. But the emotional intelligence aspect is huge. And you talk to homeless people on the streets who have these broken relationships, it's like they have been traumatized by growing up in abusive relationships. Their parents were on drugs. The parents were domestically violent. And that is the most common thing I have found in my dozens and dozens of interviews. And one day I'm going to release all the interviews. A lot of people, I just don't want to release their interviews because I want to protect their identities. And I've been sitting on an interview I'm going to show you a clip of for the last 6 months. I feel finally comfortable to share the identities of the people in this interview at a permanent supportive housing facility. So hang on a little longer with me, because now I'm going to go over what is the solution. All right. So the current system in place asserts the following. The solution to homelessness is giving people who have burned all the bridges with their family, friends, bosses, and connections free homes, free living in communities with other people who have burned all relationship bridges in their lives, who almost all use drugs all day long. That's not according to me. That's according to the people who live in these facilities who I'm about to introduce you to. We believe that rewarding people for camping out on the streets who are drug addicted and not working, wreaking havoc on businesses, as we saw in the first interview, that these people should get free apartments. That's what we believe as policymakers. That is the current system in place. Let me show you a clip now from when I was invited to a permanent supportive housing facility. And this is the first time I'm showing this because the people who were living in this facility were so absolutely courageous to come forward and talk to me. I really didn't want to get them in trouble, but I found out they were all kicked out because it was discovered they had talked to me. And so the permanent supportive housing unit kicked them all out. And of course, I can't claim that they were kicked out because of me, but that's what I think happened. So let me play that. This is the Magnolia apartment in downtown Salt Lake City. I was invited to go there. This was February of this year.
Hey, bud. Hey.
For your wife? Your girlfriend? Harper, over here. Look, Harper, smile.
Hey, dude.
Over here.
14-year-old Dotson. What did you say, Labrador?
So this is just a guy I met out in front.
Mommy was a Labrador and Daddy was a Dotson.
Pretty good.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
The hallways are covered in scuff marks. There's bicycle parts and trash. The doors are covered in kick marks, and it smelled like urine and Clorox bleach.
I'm chronically a drug addict, so I'm gonna go get money for it. What the hell?
Like you can use that instead of getting a job to make income.
Exactly.
Are you kidding
You
me?
know, come on, wake up, smell the coffee.
So that is Juanita,
I mean,
and
it seems
behind
like
her.
there's some nice people here. Rick with his dog Harper. I mean, he seemed like a nice enough guy. Are there some nice people here, or?
Long pause.
Yeah, I think there are some nice people here.
Who at
they
least
had a
want to have,
choice.
who have the heart that want to get better.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Oh.
So I wish you guys the best.
Yeah, there we
and
go.
I thank you for doing this, and maybe we.
So that's the end of my interview with them. I'm going to release the full interview shortly, probably next week. But I wanted to show that because at the very beginning of that clip, you notice she said, like, we're going to all be homeless and use drugs so we can get paid for our addiction. And she said, that's basically why all those people are there. And she wanted to speak out against it. And so did Kelly, who's also in that video. I found out that within a month, my main point of contact, Kelly, well, she was getting evicted already. That's why she contacted me. But Juanita just wanted out of there because it was such a dysfunctional place. It's basically a bunch of people who are on drugs, who are given free apartments because they're on drugs and they're not working and they want to get off the streets. The other guy, Cody, in there, got sent to prison, I guess, for a drug deal. Still, my heart goes out to these people. Like, I'm not saying that these people shouldn't have some form of shelter. They absolutely should have shelter. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be compassionate in the form of compassion that is going to help them get off drugs. So I want to make that clear distinction. It is not compassionate to put somebody in an apartment and let them continue to use drugs all day until they are dead. So I keep bringing that up on our social media sites, and I get attacked for it. But how is that compassionate? If like Juanita were your sister, would you want her to sit in an apartment and use drugs all day until she's dead? That Magnolia, a third of the tenants who started out there are now dead. They started out with 60 tenants. 20 people have died. 20 people, the way they left that apartment building was they were taken out in a body bag. And a lot of those people, unfortunately, died, and they were discovered a week later while their body was rotting. Well, people would smell the dead body in the hallway. I'm going to go into that more in the next episode when I go over this. But it's extremely sad that we believe that the only and best solution, like Gavin Newsom pointed out, is to put homeless people into homes. No, what they really need are either surrogate families or strong communities. And we've had so many people on this program who have spoken to that. So the system is backward. You should get a place, an apartment, if you are unable to work, when you get off drugs. When you show you're willing and able to do any kind of job that you are able to do and not stay on drugs. We are rewarding people for not working and staying on drugs and collecting disability. We're rewarding drug addicts and drug traffickers. There's drug trafficking operations going all around in that neighborhood. That neighborhood's gone to pot. I've had tons of people, a couple of people on the podcast who've talked about this. And here in Utah, this is who is operating this. The number one operator of the homeless housing facilities is called the Road Home. Their executive director manages at least 5 properties. There's more permanent supportive properties than that. I've asked her to come on this program about a half dozen times. She will never answer my questions because she realizes if she tries to answer the question, why are you continuing to not transform lives, not get people off drugs, not really have whole person change, why do you keep doing what you're doing? And she wouldn't want to answer that question. The Road Home takes in $27 million per year. I'll show you that right here off their website. The revenues and expenses. They have $27 million per year of expenses, and housing costs $13 million, shelter costs $11 million, and how they get their revenue is mostly $18 million comes from you and I, or almost $19 million from you and I, the taxpayers. They have private donors. They get a ton of money in fundraising operations. And I also, I'm not attacking the executive director or any of the staff of the road home. I want you to understand that. What I'm attacking is the failed policy that continues, the homeless industrial complex. The executive director of the road home earns over $200,000 per year. She gets all this money, and so does the Utah Homeless Services Board director, so does Unsheltered, I can't remember the name of it. It's either Utah Unsheltered or Shelter the Homeless. But anyway, there's another person involved who has all the real estate, and she gets this enormous salary as well. But the big thing is they don't track outcomes. You go on their website. How many homeless people have you helped? Where does it show, like, your case studies of all the great, stories of the homeless people you've gotten off the street? There are none. I asked them that several times. Show me the outcomes. They don't track them. They say it's too hard to track them. So there's no accountability because there's no return on investment. So everybody looks good when you're providing services to the homeless. The road home looks good because they're letting homeless people come in, use their facilities, get off the street, get a bed, get a meal. There's a lot of money to get them those services. And I could spend a lot of time breaking down for you the specific services and what's going on with them. But I'm wondering, why can't we as a state hold these people, these leaders, accountable for what we're paying them? And so I also want to point out the Utah Homeless State Board members, because I want to offer a call to action for them. I've got them up on the screen. These are all great people. I'm not saying these aren't, people with the best of intentions. They're all smart. They're all compassionate. I've had Mo on this podcast. I'm so glad he's serving on the board now. But here's the point. Every one of these people should be going to these facilities and asking the people at the facilities, like I've done, hey, are you getting what you need here? Hey, why aren't you getting out of your unit? What do we have to do to help you get a job? What do we have to do to help you get off drugs? I mean, all these people who are serving on here, great people, just go talk to the people and they'll tell you exactly what's going on. They're not afraid to talk to you. And coming from the people who are essentially writing the check on the behalf of of us taxpayers, I think it would be awesome if they did something like that. The other solution, why don't we realize that homelessness is not so much a problem of material need as it is a spiritual problem? Gavin Newsom and so many mayors of so many cities all across the western United States believe housing the homeless will solve homelessness. No, it won't, as we've learned over the last 15 years and billions of dollars spent. Homelessness is caused by broken families, dysfunctional behaviors, and if more leaders would come to this realization and would get more involved and enact the right solutions that have been proven to work, like the Other Side Academy's ideas, which empower whole person transformation through work programs, not sitting in an apartment using drugs all day, but being clean and sober and getting a job, going to work every day, feeling empowered through your work, then these similar programs could be operated by the state perhaps. Like TOSA, they put on what they call behavioral boot camps. Like I said, most people are suffering from homelessness because of family behavioral dysfunction. If you are taught how to behave in these different situations, you can improve your emotional intelligence. If you are given an environment where you have a boss coming down on you to a degree, you're being called out on your behavior, as TOSA does, those behaviors get exposed and then you correct those behaviors. The problem is those behaviors in so many of these people have not been corrected. So what can you do to solve homelessness? You personally. So I love the statement in Matthew 25, verse 40. Whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. I think that is Jesus giving all Christians a call to action to treat homeless as you would treat other people who are your friends. Like, you want to give Jesus a big hand up, go out and treat homeless like a friend. Ask them what their story is. Ask them what got them on the streets. Ask them what you could do to help them. Carol Hollowell, who started Switchpoint, which is a wonderful organization helping the homeless, said just one single cup of coffee for one homeless guy led her on the path of creating this amazing homeless solution advocacy group and shelters that she's running now. And I think that the major expense of all our homeless services is caseworkers. I think that Christians who want to volunteer their time should join up with an organization and be a volunteer caseworker for homeless people. Like, ask homeless people, what can I check up on you every couple of weeks? Can we help you get back off the streets and get back on your feet? I think if even 10% of Christians became volunteer caseworkers, you know, perhaps retired folks over the age of 60, we would solve homelessness. If our state policymakers adopted the Other Side Academy solutions, we would solve homelessness. All right. I think this is worthwhile. I think it's worthwhile to pay attention to this, to share this with your friends, to tune into our ongoing coverage of this issue. Why? Because these people, these homeless people, they aren't strangers. They're our brothers, they're our sisters, they're our friends. They should belong to our communities, and they need a helping hand to get back on their feet. And so with that, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Leave us comments below. I always love getting comments, and I love having people be a bigger part of this ongoing coverage by subscribing to our magazine and our free digital newsletter. I love getting tips as well. If you've got a tip that I should follow, that we should follow regarding a homeless housing facility, a homeless person you know who needs their voice to be heard, reach out to us, richard@utahstories.com, or leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. God, how long was that? It was way too long.